Power 987 podcast on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. There's more on power987.co.za.
Today is such a beautiful day for me. I'm so excited. You have no idea. We've just been hugging and reminiscing on the good times and just connecting once again. I'm with the SG of MK Party, Honorable Sibonela Nomvalo, who's here in studio with us. We told you that we're going to be talking to the newly appointed SG of MK Party, and we want to hear from you. Stay on the line with us. Remember, studio lines are open 0861 987 000. He is not new to politics, and today we're going to get to know him. We're going to understand his role, of course, in Parliament, leading up to the ad hoc committee. And then, of course, everybody wants to know about this new role. What does it mean? He is the 8th SG. And is he safe? Is he secure? I don't know. What is his mandate? What is he intending to do with the party leading up to the local government election? Because everybody's talking about local government elections. Parties are already on the ground, some of them hitting the ground running, some already swimming in potholes. But we see MK disbanding structures. So we want to understand what is the strategy behind all of this. SG. My singular honor is to host you today, and thank you so much for gracing us with your presence and physically coming here to join us. Thank you for being here. Good evening.
Pleasure. Good evening, and good evening to the listeners at home.
Yeah, let's start with Nomvalo, because most people really got to interact with you in the ad hoc committee. Yes, you've been doing parliamentary work in your portfolio committee, but you became very prominent and very vocal, and people then started to hear and see this voice who just occupied our space in, you know, in the political arena of South Africa. But where did Nomvalo start in his political career? We know you're from KZN, but how did you arrive here?
I'm from KZN indeed. That is true. My home is there in KZN, in a small town. It's a rural town called Mzimkhulu. So I was born there. I did my lower grades there, and I did my high school there. So I went to the Eastern Cape to pursue my LLB studies. So that is where I got involved. That's where I engaged myself with political activism. So I was elected upon my arrival in the Eastern Cape. I think during my second year, I was elected as the chairperson of the South African Student Congress movement, which is affectionately known as SASCO. And thereafter, I was elected, I think, on the following year as the Speaker of Student Parliament. And I got involved in many leadership responsibilities. There's never been a turning back since then. And then after my graduation, I went back home. I was unemployed, I think, for a period of 6 months. So when I arrived at home, I became active in the ANC Youth League, which is a youth wing of the ANC. So I was elected as the branch chairperson of the ANC Youth League. And then on the following year, I was elected as the sub-regional chairperson of the ANC Youth League. From there, I went to the PEC, the Provincial Executive Committee of the ANC Youth League. After that, I became the spokesperson of the province, and then went back home again to be elected as the branch chairperson of the ANC now, which is the mother body, because the Youth League is a youth wing of the ANC, and then the ANC being a mother body. So it's an elevation of some sort, even though you are the chair at a branch level, but now you are the chair of the mother body, not of the Youth League. So that is the long and short of my political activism. So since my younger age, I've been involved in various leadership responsibilities. Because even in high school, by the way, I was involved in what was called the LRC. I think it means Learners representative council. That's how they called it at a high school level, because where I come from, COSAS is not visible even now. So it was impossible for us to be active in COSAS, because there was no structure of COSAS that was busy with recruitment and mobilization. So we only knew COSAS from TV. It was never part of our political activism. So I became the treasurer there of we called it the cabinet. It was the cabinet. And then after I became the president at a high school level. So I come a long way with this thing of being engaged in various leadership responsibilities. But, you know, for a person who is lazy, because my history, I think 80% of my history in politics is found on social media. Because I became active on Facebook, I think in 2009 on my arrival at Varsity. So it's out there for public consumption.
To see where you've been.
Yes, you don't need a researcher for you to know my history. But they are lazy people, lazy, and who can't even make an effort of, you know, ascertaining my history, who just speak for the sake of speaking. Some are even saying, I was listening to a very cheap voice note yesterday. Somebody was saying, I've got no credentials, historical credentials. And I said, who is this one now? In which planet does he live? Because if really he's a human being with a proper thought process, he would know that I did not engage in politics recently. I come a very long way with political activism.
Indeed. And even within MK Party, you joined 2023, isn't it?
Correct, yes.
And what prompted your move from the ANC, Gogo, as we call it, to MK Party? Did you resign when MK was formed, or you had long given up on the ANC?
No, I was just a member, but my soul was no longer within the livelihood of the ANC because of what the ANC have become. You know, we started to fight the injustices within the ANC while we were still a part of the ANC. I remember when I was part of the PEC of the Youth League, I always went against the grain to a point where I went to an interview on Gagasi FM. I think the show, I think it was run by, I forget his name, or Alex Mtian. So I went there to speak up against the tendency of some of the ANC leaders while I was part of a structure. So I never joined the MK Party because I saw it as the shortest route maybe to power or to leadership. But I joined it out of my convictions. But also, I joined it after my reconciliation with the fact that the chances of rescuing the ANC are very slim. We tried. There's nothing we did not do while we were members of the ANC. We just realized that, the organization now is at the verge of collapse, and it has completely deviated from its revolutionary core business. It has been hijacked by wrong elements. It has been hijacked by wrong ideologies, because the ANC, even though it is an omnibus, a multi-class organization, but it is biased to the working class. So its policies are policies that must be poor. Even the leadership must also be pro to those policies. But you see a different posture that is taken by the movement. In fact, you see a movement that has launched an onslaught against the poor and the downtrodden. And we thought maybe that is just something that will pass, and ultimately the ANC will be rescued. But we realized that an alternative here really must be established, and that alternative, according to my convictions, is an alternative that was established by President Zuma in 2023 when he said, black people must unite behind one vision and for the total liberation of blacks in general and Africans in particular.
Yeah. Then you arrive in Parliament.
Yes.
2024. By the way, the SG, Honorable Nomvalo, you are still a member of Parliament, right?
Yes,
So
correct.
he's still Honorable Nomvalo. He was in the Portfolio Committee of Justice because he's an advocate by profession as well, which we haven't spoken about, and he does run his practice, and that's how you get into the portfolio. Then Madlanga comes. Madlanga is a different ballgame.
Yes, correct.
Did you anticipate that Madlanga will turn out the way it has, not just for you personally, because we've seen you grow tremendously, or we've seen it expose what was always inside of you. You know, the platform did that. But did you see it explode the way it did in the national issues and the depth and the critical issues that you guys were dealing with? Did you anticipate that?
No, to be quite honest, I didn't, and I'm glad you were there. You were my chief whip at that time. So you remember how we came in. We came in because we were serving in the portfolio committees, which were relevant in the scope of the terms of reference of the ad hoc committee. And two, the issues that were raised were affecting the departments or the entities which fall within the justice cluster. The police, the Department of Justice, with entities under it, entities like the NPA, and so on and so forth. So that is how we came in. So when we came in, we were under an impression that we were just doing a normal oversight exercise here. We didn't anticipate the shape that it ultimately took, because it gained an international traction, not just a national traction, but an international traction. And even people who did not know us, they started to ask themselves, you know, I was telling some comrades that I was working with Honorable Skosana here in OR Tambo. I think we're coming from, I can't remember where we were coming from. You know, we couldn't move. People were stopping us, greeting us, wanting to take pictures with us and so on. So you are no longer living a normal life where you just walk without being recognized. Now people call you from a distance. This thing of becoming the SG has made things worse now. So it took a shape that we never anticipated. And I think, you know, things have got their way of developing. So I think even with this one, it took a different, shape which we never anticipated. But in terms of the work that we did, I know maybe you are still going to ask that question.
You can go for it, because I want to get to that quickly. The work that you did, and also your greatest takeaway from that ad hoc committee. Yes.
But to be quite honest with you, I'm not pleased comprehensively with the work that we did now as a committee, not as members of the MK Party. I think because of the fact that Parliament, by its nature, is reflective of party politics, because we are the representatives of different political parties. And sometimes political interest triumph the interest of the country. So sometimes we become so protective of our parties, even at the expense of our national interests. So I believe that politics in the ad hoc committee overwhelmed our work, and to a point where objectivity and impartiality got compromised. I will make a practical example. There was a heated discussion in the ad hoc committee about how we should approach the Ramaphosa matter. The ANC made a presentation that Mr. Ramaphosa must be asked questions in writing. He must not appear.
Yeah.
We opposed that as the MK party. We said, no, this is not a normal oversight process. This is an investigation with specific terms of reference. Now, when you say the president must be treated differently, you are just compromising the rule of law. You are saying not everyone is equal before the law. The president is above everybody by virtue of being the president. But secondly, you are circumventing an opportunity of members of the ad hoc committee to ask questions adequately to the president. Because remember, when we ask questions there in the ad hoc committee, you don't ask a question like you are asking a grade 1 learner. You say 1 plus 1, and then he says 2, then you move to another question. There are follow-up questions. A conversation between you and the witness on the stand is very robust to a point where if you are not satisfied with the answer, you say to him or to her, you are lying. That is not true. This is the proposition I'm putting to you. What you are saying is untrue, because the ultimate goal is to elicit a truth. You want to know what happened. So you use all different skills to get that truth from that particular witness that you are dealing with at that time. Now, we saw a very scary scenario here where a man called the president of the country was treated differently and was given a special treatment. So we wrote questions to him. He replied, and I was never satisfied. I was not satisfied with many responses he gave in his reply. But what then becomes a relief? There is no relief because we can't ask a follow-up question.
He's not there to answer.
It ends there. He is not there to answer. So that is just one of the issues that I feel that we missed an opportunity as the ad hoc committee to do our work. And ipso facto, our work will be highly compromised. And also, we did not get the necessary support now from Parliament. There was no forensic investigator. When this guy says to us, Ket Matlala says, I gave money, 500,000 to Peggy Cele. How do we prove that? He says, I gave him, it was in a bag, Woolworths bag.
The
yes.
bag.
And then we were in a hotel or in an apartment of some sort. So how do we then prove that? Because if you want to make a finding in that aspect or in that regard, you need to take your investigation further so that you make a well-balanced and a well-informed finding. Because you can't just rely on what Matlala tells you and take it as is. You take it further by testing it, by using different methodologies, and including by going to a footage of that hotel and see if indeed there was a meeting of some sort, what was he carrying by his hands, and so on and so forth. Then you make a determination. But because we had limited resources, we couldn't take our investigation to that extent.
But do you think that it was through this committee that yourself, as the leader of MK team there, and the team, of course, and everybody that was supporting, that's when you asserted yourselves, and I'm distancing myself now because I'm no longer in MK. Is that when the party started to assert itself as the real opposition? Because we saw you in many heated debates and confrontations, even with Malema and many other members, including ANC and the chairperson themselves. Was that the opportunity that kind of tilted the scales for MK party as a national voice?
Yeah, I would say largely, because remember, we are a new child on the block. So we are still suffering from political fragility and some elements of opportunism, take place sometimes. Some people mischaracterize our party and what it stands for. And some try to subvert the responsibility that it plays in Parliament through its constitutional obligation of holding the executive accountable. So there was an attempt in the public domain to undermine the role of the MK party. We all know it's an open secret. You know, some people were even saying on Twitter, talking nonsense, were saying the MK party doesn't contribute in committees. Some of our members keep quiet and so on and so forth. And I was saying, really, if South Africans believe in these lies, it means we've got a serious problem of intellectual capacity that has collapsed in this country, because our sessions are broadcast. They are on YouTube. You can go to Scopa. Our comrades are doing wonders there, the MK party. You can go to the Justice Committee. Our comrades are doing wonders. You go to Health Portfolio Committee. You go to Transport, where Comrade Montana was sitting. You go to Finance, where Comrade Brian was sitting. We've got skillful and energetic comrades who are full of substance and ideas, who contribute largely, some because of their experience, you know, and some because of their capacity. So the MK party has always been a voice of reason in Parliament, but there has been this concerted effort to try and undermine its responsibility. And I'm afraid some of the people in society were falling into a trap of believing, you know, into those lies, which were far-fetched. So this one now, because it gained some traction, the ad hoc committee defeated those narratives. People started to reconcile with the reality now. They said, I remember when we started, there were silly comments which were made against us. And I was saying to my members, because remember, I'm a lead, because the ad hoc committee is still underway. So I said to members, don't worry, the truth will prevail. People will know who we are. They will know our characters. They will know our capabilities. So let's not rush. People will judge from what is a true reflection now of our capacity in Parliament. And as time goes by,
you're proven right.
The narrative now is changing.
And then now they know, like you said, testament what you're saying. You can't work anywhere and they don't recognize Nomvalo or any of the other members, and because of the work. And I want to transition now from Parliament to where we are, but is it still your lived truth that there is a concerted effort to undermine and shut MK from media platforms so that your voices are heard, and that's why even the work in different portfolio committees is not able to come out as it ought to? Is that still the case, or you think things have now changed?
No, that effort got defeated. The people who were championing it realized that we're wasting time. People know now what the MK is and what it stands for, and what capacity does it possess. So they are defeated now. I think they are still trying to find other ways of discrediting the MK party, but that strategy has now fallen short. So it's neither here nor there now. The MK party has demonstrated its strength, and it is now known for what it is.
Well, we are talking to the newly appointed, maybe not newly appointed anymore, but he is the new SG of MK Party, Honorable Sibonelo Nomvalo. He's in studio with us. Our lines are open, 0861-987-000. I want to hear your thoughts. We can see some of the calls starting to come in, but let's establish some of the roles that he has done beyond being in Parliament. Now, I don't know. Did you get a phone call? Did you get a WhatsApp message? I mean, what happened? Who told you are now the SG? Did you see it coming?
I just saw on TV like everyone.
The way I was fired?
No. I'm joking. There was a process, you know. I think this came out of a collective wisdom.
Yes.
Because, like many people are always accusing our party for being chaotic, with no organizational culture and so on. Some are even saying it's being run in Kandla, it's a family business. With the experience that I have with the MK party, that is not true. This was subjected to a collective. Remember, on that day, there is an officials meeting which preceded the press briefing, which ultimately took place and made an announcement of the new appointments. So I was informed that...
So the meeting took place on the same day, and you were informed. So the decision was made on the day that you were informed?
Correct. The decision, but the consultative process did not happen on that day. It started a long time ago.
And you saw it coming
way
as well.
before that day. Yes. That there is this thought of making a reconfiguration, which might also involve you.
Yes.
So it never came as a shock. In fact, I was lobbied, I think, since December by some comrades. I don't know whether they were just lobbying me from a hypothetical point of view, or it was a well-coordinated program. I don't know. Or they just had confidence in me. So they lobbied me. Then I declined. I said, no, I'm not available. I think I'm fine in Parliament. I think I contribute largely, immensely, and I'm satisfied with the contribution I'm making in Parliament. So I don't need to go to the party. So they were saying, no, this party needs to be saved. So we need your experience. We think it can assist us here and there. So please avail yourself. So what happened ultimately during the announcement was a continuation of engagements which started a long time ago.
And because you mentioned this was going to come later, this party needs to be saved. That's a very big and bold statement. Saved from what? From who?
No, you save the party in many ways. You don't necessarily save the party because it is under threat. Sometimes you detect a threat which might come in future because of the current surrounding circumstances. And say, for us to circumvent those threats from penetrating in the organization, we need to be steps ahead. We need to ensure that we find a proper character that would make sure that even when we cross that bridge, in future, we cross it with an organization that is intact. So there was no threat which was prevalent at the time, but there was an anticipation that this organization, firstly, is a young organization. Secondly, an organization which is young can easily be engulfed by foreign elements which can contribute to its collapse. So to circumvent all that, you need a character that will be befitting for that task.
And in your understanding, what is that character that you possess that made everybody place so much confidence in you? Yes, we've seen you rise through the ranks and you chaired branches, but to chair a branch and to run as an SG of the third largest party in South Africa is a different ball game altogether. It requires a different skill and thinking, or maybe an amplified skill that you might have, and to do extremely well in a portfolio committee in Parliament and in the ad hoc committee with all its complexities. It's different from the role that an SG of a party is supposed to play. What are those characters that the SG of MK was really supposed to possess?
No, I think the basic requirement is that you must first understand the responsibility that you are engaged with. That firstly, you are a personification of the organization. You are an embodiment of the values and systems and principles of the organization. You are an engine. If that office is not functional, the whole organization dies. So the strength of the organization lies in that office. So you need to understand that as a basic requirement. But secondly, you must understand the task at hand, that the MK Party has a very complex assignment. It must be unique from other parties which are currently there.
Even its inception was unique.
Even the inception.
Just the rise to power was
exactly. It grew at a grassroots level.
Yeah.
I always say that the people funded their own revolution. They went to elections. They did not receive any funding. They were empty-handed, but they did wonders because they won. We've got 58 seats in the National Assembly. Combined with the seats that we have in the NSOP. So some parties which have been there for quite some time are struggling, to get such numbers that we got. Now, you need to understand that this is a party which is very unique, and this is a party which has a robust characters, the MK Party.
Yeah.
So its characters who can challenge you at any time, regardless of the position that you hold, because some of them are irritated by their historical experiences, which they incurred from the different parties from which they come. So you must understand that this is not the party similar to a party from which I come. It's a completely new breed.
It's a melting point for so many
Correct.
ideologies as well.
Yes, and understand the character here, that we have got the president with a completely different character, who's very accessible. So you must emulate him, which is not an easy thing to do. They accuse every day in Ganja. People are always queuing to see the old man.
Yeah.
And we are also going to carry that burden by virtue of being a leader of the MK Party, because they are used to that kind of modus operandi. So you can't come with a different culture and systems and say, no, you can't do this, because you are going to be perceived as somebody who is not accessible.
Yes.
So I'm saying, understanding the organization that you lead, which is what many comrades who have led before have failed to do. I always say that I have high regards for Comrade Floyd Shivambu, but I believe that his character was not relevant for the MK Party. He has what it takes. He's good, he's eloquent, he knows he has some ideological understanding, but his character was not befitting for the members of the MK Party. I think he perceived the MK Party as an organization similar maybe to the EFF in terms of how they, relate with members of the organization.
And what character is it that you possess, that you personify? As you said, you need to be that embodiment of the values and character of MK. What are those characters that you currently have, that, as opposed to what perhaps the former SG Shivambu, as an example, did not have?
Accessibility.
Accessibility,
Yeah, I think accessibility. You must be accessible as a leader. People must be able to talk to you without any fear of prejudice. And you must not always give an impression that by virtue of being a leader, you are superior. Because you are going to make people to be aloof. I mean, you are going to be aloof if you possess that character. And people will develop some negative attitude towards you. You must have an open door policy. Whenever people have problems, when you appear to them, they must see solutions.
That's it.
Because they see their leader coming in, and they know that by virtue of being present, their solutions are going to be solved.
Look, we understood when Floyd came in as well, that his mandate from the leadership that was at the time was to institutionalize the party, build structures, and as far as put together the constitution, which is still in force even today. I know there's, I think there's an ongoing process for amendments, but largely it's still in force. what was the mandate given to you as the SG to say, this is what we want you to achieve for MK, and do you have any timelines as well pertaining to that?
Yeah, I think let me start from where you started. Remember when Floyd came in, he came in after we convened a gathering which was called Hoover.
Yeah.
Which was in Bela Bela.
Yeah.
That gathering dissected our policy framework, and it took a particular policy position. And I remember that we said in terms of our ideological character, we are a pan-Africanist movement, and we also, adopted the constitution. What was left after that policy conference to happen is that those policies were supposed to be cascaded to our lower structures.
Yeah.
And then for consultative purposes. And thereafter we adopt them as our conclusive policy position. Now, when Floyd came in, he came in as though nothing has ever happened. He came in and under an impression that he's starting everything from scratch, which was not true. That is why at some point there was an argument between him and some members. I'm not going to get into details. Some members with some institutional memory who were saying, no, this is the position. What you are telling us is not true, and it ended the way it ended.
Yeah.
So I'm saying, there is some work which has been done already. That is why I get angry at people who say the MK party does not have policies. We do have policies. We just because policies should not be stagnant. They are living documents. From time to time, they must be reviewed and changed where necessary, because politics are not stagnant. The circumstances also are not stagnant.
Is that why the appointment of that policy committee and Lucky Montana is chairing it?
Correct.
To revisit and review the...
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
So we are just here putting the systems which are going to relate with the material conditions on the ground. So we are building this organization, and by saying we are building it, we are not saying we are building it from scratch. There is something which has already been done, and we are taking it from there.
And your specific mandate and priorities, I still want to come back to that. What will be your focus when you leave office at some point, whether now or second term or whenever, you would have achieved? That's what you agreed with the leadership to say, this is important for us at this time.
Okay. What we want to achieve is a development of internal and external policies. When I say internal, I mean those policies that are regulating our administrative framework, like your HR policies and so on and so forth. And also external policies which talk now to service delivery, our policy on education, our policy on land, and so on and so forth. But we also want to develop what is called capable cadres, because if you have good policies without capable comrades, those policies are as good as non-existent, because you need characters that are going to articulate these policies. You need characters that are going to fight for the implementation of these policies. And those characters can only be capable characters which understand the complexity of the assignment at hand. That this assignment is an assignment which is different from an assignment which has been executed by other political parties, but is an assignment of liberating our people, is an assignment of changing the status quo, is an assignment of emancipating our people from economic bondages. So that is what is at hand. We want to build a strong organization, and when you build a strong organization, you don't build it in the atmosphere. You build your branches as a basic unit of the organization, because that's where the livelihood is. It's at the branch level.
Yeah.
We are not going to operate an organization from the
Yeah.
boot of your car,
Yeah.
where you have forms. You fill in forms and imagine that you have a membership that is growing when practically you don't have. You are just, building membership for Congress purposes.
Yeah.
Here we want to build branches which are going to be responsive to the needs of the people on the ground, which are going to articulate the needs of the people on the ground. When the people don't have water in a Guyane, it must be the branch of the MK that says, people don't have water here.
Yeah.
Let's go to the municipality and demand water for our people. When the people don't have houses in Khayelitsha, it must be a branch of the MK party that marches to the offices of the municipality and demand proper houses that are going to restore the dignity of black people.
Yeah. Let me remind our listeners, we are still talking to the SG of MK Party. I can see callers. I will come to you. We just have to establish the base with the SG, and we're going to take all the calls. So stay online, stay with us. And 0861 987 000 is the line where you can reach us. And SG, is disbanding the structures, as we've seen you do, part of this establishment of a strong internal and external organization? Is it part of your drive towards building strong branches and formulating policies that everybody, capable leaders, will align to? Is that a strategy, or is that a let's demolish and restart? Where do we place it?
It's a strategy which is informed by a desire to oil a very intact and strong election machinery. Remember when the announcement was made in December 2023, we were left with 5 months before elections, before 2024 elections. Now, the focus was divided, the focus of the MK party. There was a responsibility at hand, a responsibility of building this organization. Also, there was a responsibility of contesting the elections, because remember, we wanted to win with two-third majority.
Yeah.
So it was difficult to strike a balance.
Yeah.
But what was our priority, because of the pressure that we were under, was to win elections. That was our priority. Now, to a certain extent, we did not have much time to focus on the agenda of building proper structures of the organization. Then we did very well because we got the percentage that we got. But we're then left with a task now of building these proper structures. So because when you are building an organization, you apply different methodology, different modalities. And if you realize that this modality does not work, then you explore another modality with a motive of trying to find an amicable solution.
Yeah.
Now, the modality that we explored as the MK party is a modality of appointing structures.
Yeah.
I think our president has always been emphatic on that we will not go to conferences anytime soon, because we need to find our footing. We need to understand who we are, and we need to know who is who in the zoo. And I think that is a valid call. But we realized that that process, to a certain extent, can be compromised by some uncontrollable factional desires and by abuse of power. Some people would, appoint people on the basis of proximity, and because they are proxies, even if they don't have what it takes. You just appoint a clown because he can sing about you day and night, and you give that clown a very complex task. The next thing he does not understand what he must do. He doesn't know whether he's coming or going. He doesn't do anything except bragging about being the chair or the secretary and so on. So I'm not saying that is what is happening, but I'm saying that is a possible scenario if you apply this modality that we explored as the MK party. Then we realize that this is not working. If anything, it opens a room for political maneuvering. It opens a room for abuse of power. Maybe now and there is an outcry generally within the ranks of the organization about some structures which are there, which were put in place. And we said we can't go to elections under these circumstances. Some paradigm shift must be enforced for the best interest of the organization. And we said, now let's try a different methodology. And I think a word disbandment is a bit harsh. We are making a reconfiguration, because when you disband, you just disband. But when you reconfigure, you can bring back a person who was part of the initial structure if the membership, the general membership, is still happy with that person. So if this person was the regional chair, and now we say we no longer have regional chairs, we have election conveners. And we say to them, bring us names. Bring names who are going to occupy those positions, and they bring the same names. We're not going to, reject those names, because what we are saying here is that, comrades, we now know each other. We've been here for 2 years. So there can never be an excuse that we don't know each other, and there might be people who might infiltrate, who come from other organizations. That is not possible now. We've been there for quite some time. So we are actually trying to develop here a methodology which is going to give us what is a reflection of what our members desire on the ground.
And we've heard you talk about, in fact, you made a statement. You said only politically lazy observers call MK a KZN only movement.
Correct.
Pointing to representation in, you're saying your MKs in Gauteng, in Eastern Cape, Northwest, and Mpumalanga. I think we've seen Mpumalanga with about 9 seats after the local election.
Correct.
I think we can talk of representation there. But other provinces, Gauteng, there is representation as well in terms of the numbers that you have in the thing. Other provinces,
and
what are we?
We need to analyze other provinces within their current political context. For instance, the Eastern Cape is a stronghold of the ANC. Even other parties, not the MK party, which is only 2 years, are struggling to establish their ground there in the Eastern Cape.
Limpopo too.
Limpopo also is a stronghold of the ANC. The Western Cape is a stronghold of the DA, but even though it is a stronghold of the DA, we managed to win a ward there in the Western Cape, as young as we are during the by-elections. So this party is everywhere. We've got a national footing. We are in Mpumalanga. We are here. I attended a program here last week. Here in Joburg. The hall was fully packed. So we cannot have such a magnitude. We can't have such numbers if we are a party which is based in KZN. We did not bus anyone from KZN on that day. The hall was packed by members of the MK party here in Gauteng. This is just a narrative which is being, spread across by haters of the MK party, by people who have some chest pains because, we defeated them during the elections, and we're still going to defeat them more. So they are trying, by all means, to belittle our significance in the South African politics. And unfortunately, they are not going to make any changes, because it's the masses on the ground who speak. And they are going to speak loudly during the local government elections. So that thing is not there. We are everywhere. We are in each and every corner. the IFP is very old, but in some provinces they don't have any ward.
Yeah.
They don't have any ward councillor. The DA, they don't have any wards in some areas. The EFF, it doesn't have any municipalities, which is under the EFF and other parties. So I'm saying to want to judge the MK party at this stage on the basis of its, stronghold, and want to characterize it as a party that only belongs in KZN really is so unfortunate and undesirable. By the way, KZN is our stronghold.
Yeah.
Like I've told you that even the ANC has some areas that are known to be its stronghold. Like I told you that the Eastern Cape is a stronghold of the ANC. But you can't say the Eastern Cape, the ANC is the Eastern Cape based organization because it has a stronghold in the Eastern Cape. So KZN remains our stronghold, and we're proud of that. We're proud of having a stronghold in KZN, even though we are a party which is 2 years old.
So you believe in the upcoming local government elections that MK party will do well in other provinces outside of the KZN?
Absolutely. Even here in Joburg, we're going to take Joburg, we will take Ekurhuleni, we will take Tshwane.
We are almost, if we push it to December, maybe we're 7 months away from local government elections, right? I said in my opening, we are seeing other parties already making strides in local government elections. They've got ducks in the row from what we see. Some have structures or are still building, but they've announced their mayoral candidates. There's a plan towards local government election campaigning. We see you still trying to establish local government, or you call it election structures, or regional election structures at the moment. And we don't know what are the timelines for that. Then you must be able to look into those that are fit for purpose, for your purpose, for councillors and those that you can push forward as mayors. When do they get time to campaign? When do you anticipate you are actually going to hit the ground and say, here is the city of Johannesburg, this is who the party is putting forward, perhaps as a mayoral candidate and some of the councillors, because those are also, of course, determined by IEC determination in terms of registering them. Where are we in that?
No, we are moving with our own pace. Our operations are not going to be dictated to by what other parties are doing, because we know what we're doing, and we want to apply a meticulous approach. We don't want to do things haphazardly. For as long as we are still in line with the schedule of the IEC, for as long as we don't miss the deadlines, we believe that we are still on the right track. The MK party is going to contest in all the wards in South Africa, nationally.
Okay.
And we are going to win many municipalities in KZN, here in Gauteng, in Mpumalanga as well, and in other provinces. So we will work.
So your strong focus will be those three, and then others.
Yeah, we're
follow.
focusing everywhere.
Okay.
But I'm saying where we have more confidence is in those provinces.
Okay.
Because when you go to elections, you go with a reality at the back of your head. You know that here I've got some, strongholds. There I've got some shortcomings. So it means I need to restructure my strategies in order for me to be able to turn, the tables around. So I'm saying to you, in terms of our assessment, we know that our strongholds are here in Gauteng, Mpumalanga and KZN. But it doesn't mean that we're not going to put effort in other provinces. The aim here is to win all the municipalities in South Africa so that we can liberate the people of South Africa, our people. Because all the parties which are currently in power are doing absolutely nothing to liberate the people of South Africa.
Yeah. And I'm racing a bit because I really want you to have time to engage with the listeners as well. The Progressive Caucus, does it exist?
It does exist. It exists with challenges here and there. What becomes our responsibility as revolutionaries is to rise above those challenges, because they are not ideologically orientated. It's challenges which come from some political dynamics and from some tactical approach. But what becomes a responsibility is to ensure that we sustain this project called the Progressive Caucus, because remember, it's not just a name, but there is a political framework which is actually a guidance to this formation of the Progressive Caucus. Remember, there's a progressive charter which defines the aims and objectives that must be pursued by parties which are part of the Progressive Caucus.
Yeah.
So it does exist. It has challenges here and there, and those challenges are precipitated by the fact that at the end of the day, we are political parties. When we're in Parliament, after Parliament, we go back to our political parties. We speak in a manner which is at the best interest of our parties respectively. And at times, that compromises the work of the Progressive Caucus that we laid in Parliament.
But also, it's not just a matter of speaking about, because, I mean, we see MK really trying to rise above some of the pettiness. You make your efforts to speak unity, reach out, give olive branches time and again, in the name of the Progressive Caucus. But we see, as an example, the EFF's response is always on the negative when it comes to MK party, as far as ridiculing even President Zuma, for that matter, and what we witnessed today was another challenge in the Gauteng province, where the EFF decided to identify themselves with the Gauteng provincial unity, leaving the MK out. You did not even vote together. We're asking ourselves, it's not a matter of you talk something different when you're with your party. They are demonstrating day in and day out that they are not are not interested per se in the Progressive Caucus. But before you take the answer of the Progressive Caucus, can I quickly go to the news, top of the hour news? I'm enjoying your conversation. We almost missed Mr. Thabo Molokwana. Thank you so much. Yeah, welcome back. You're on Power Perspective. We were having such an engaged conversation that we almost missed the news. Thank you, SG, for really engaging us so openly. I think let's just hit that question around the Progressive Caucus, because it is a worrying pattern that we see occurring over and over again.
Yeah. Maybe can I address the Gauteng issue?
Yes, please go
as
ahead.
Well, because you also spoke about it. Look, Panyaza held a media briefing today, and he said discussions with the MK party are ongoing. That is true. I had constant engagements with him yesterday, and also there is some dedication of the party which was here in Gauteng. I also had some constant engagements with the SG of the EFF, because our agreement is that even if here we take a particular posture here in Gauteng, it must never compromise the broader relationship that we have, but also it will never change a commitment which they have made in KZN to support the MK party by virtue of being the largest party. So that is the understanding that we have with the EFF, but we couldn't reach consensus, or we couldn't finalize our discussions with the ANC due to some outstanding issues. That is why the premier here was saying discussions with the MK party have not been finalized, because the concern that we dissected as the MK party is that in KZN we are the largest party, but we are not in power. Here in Gauteng, we continue to support the ANC on a blank check. So what does that practically mean? It means our comrades are being suffocated in KZN while we are mingling with the ANC here in Gauteng. We are a unitary organization. We are not a federation of provinces. Discussions must be, centered and must emanate from one point of direction. We must not, operate as though we come from different parties, whereas we take a mandate from one center.
Yeah.
So we then said, we issued an instruction to our caucus here in Gauteng to say we must not vote with the ANC, even though, for the budget, even though we sympathized with Panyaza's stance, which he espoused here in Gauteng, because against the will of his leadership to work with the DA.
Yeah.
He took a different posture. He said, I will never work with these people because they think they have some white privilege. So I'm going to establish my own government here out of my own convictions. So we sympathize with that stance because it's a reflection of defiance against the establishment, which should be the case. But because we are leading a party here, we are also accountable to our constituency. We must strike a balance.
Yeah.
We must consider KZN while we discuss about Gauteng, and not discuss about Gauteng in isolation.
You know, the stance that you're talking about, and you are an SG now, if in future a province or a municipality defies the party and your instructions and goes ahead and forms a coalition, because coalitions are real and I'm sure you'll face them going into the local government election. And would you encourage that, where a municipality with its own regional chair would stage a defiance and they don't agree with you and they don't follow party line, because you seem to support Panyaza here, against what his party line says?
No, but the question is, did he defy a party line or he defied Mbalula? Because Mbalula is obsessed with the National Conference of the
Either
ANC.
way, he's the leadership.
So he views Panyaza as a threat. So he's always, trying to outmaneuver Panyaza in so many ways because, well, I've got no interest in their party issues. But I'm saying the reality here in Gauteng is that Mbalula is using the national conference, the incoming national conference of the ANC, as his tools of...
Would you not fire that regional chair if they defied you?
No, but I'm saying there's a difference between a party line and Mbalula's line. And Mbalula's line has been informed by a desire.
SG is being economical right now, so let me save him. Matunjo from Dundee, good evening.
Ngiyaphila Nomvalo.
Siyaphila ninjani baba?
Sikhona. Yazi khona into engishayayo na. Engifuna ukuyazi ukuthi ninalo yini plan la mavoti, ngoba la abantu bayaweba amavoti. Angazi noma nayibona lento le. Ngoba even namanje kulama by-elections uyabona ukuthi labantu bayaweba amavoti. Number 2, lento yokuthi is the family stokvel, that's nonsense kahle. Nina 2 years nicompete nabantu abanye abano 13 years, abanye abano 100 and something years. Vele azoba khona ama problems ku organization. Ayikho organization yavele yavumbuka nje yaba right. Bonke baqale lapha iniqala khona kwani. Number 2, wena Mvalo, akwenilungise lento yaseKZN wangempela mfethu, ngoba dala siphethe laba bantu i-IFP neminyaka iphethe lapha iphethe la.
Matunjo, I would like to thank you. I have to cut you because there are other callers and we're running out of time, but I think USG has the gist of your question and your comments, and I'll give you an opportunity to address. Jabulani from Mamelodi, good evening. In a minute, please address the SG.
Yeah, let me firstly congratulate Mr. Nomvalo for his new position, and it's a very big role, by the way.
Thank you.
And I want to ask him this question. And I don't want to talk about politics because he has already told us a lot of things. And then that is probably one of the things that actually I don't like, which is clearism and all that. And where we are now, the country is suffering administratively. And then he got to be known through an ad hoc committee, which I was very, very much impressed. And even looking at his age, actually, it simply tells me that actually the youth can be actually reinvigorated because this problem that we have in this country requires the youth. That's exactly the type of leaders that we need. Are they ready? Or what is it that they are doing to attract the youth? Because actually they have lost interest. We can't be having, ancestors in our parliament. The characters that we need, as much as he was talking about character, this is exactly the character that you have there, Colin, that we want to lead this country. And lastly, the penalty that was given by Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi on the 6th of July, which is actually where technicality comes in this country, other than all these other shenanigans that actually we are trying to discuss. Are they prepared to score that penalty? Because that is a penalty. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Raputi from Attridgeville, good evening. Raputi, we can't hear you. Good evening.
Hey, good evening.
Thank you for holding for us, Raputi. Go for it in a minute. Yeah.
I was in a private conversation there. Sorry, I don't know what you had. Ms. Mankubela, and SG them. Mr. SG, now I don't want to lie, man. The party that you are representing, that I would call it a cult, because I don't know how long you're going to be in that position, because your president, we know his temperament, how he behaves. He shuffles. You can wake up tomorrow, Mr. Mankubela, before you come to your next show, you'll be having another note. We know. I don't know why.
So your question is around the instability.
The instability in the party, because, no. And then he said he gets offended when you say that they don't have any policy. I don't see any clear policy, because policy is made on a whim of one individual. On a whim.
Okay.
On a whim.
Raputi, thank you. I think we get your point. I appreciate that. I'm sorry that we are rushing. We need to wrap up in the next 10 minutes. Lim Kunu, National Head of Liaison MK. Go for it.
Greetings, Comrade Colin.
Greetings, how are you?
Yeah, thanks, man, and congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, and really, before I go to Nopala, I really have to thank you for the contribution you made in the National Assembly as the Chief Whip of Umkhonto Sizwe.
Thank you.
Thank you, and I wish you all the best in your new endeavors as a media personnel of Power FM. I know you'll do great.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
No, thank you so much. Nopala. No, man. Thank you so much for such a wonderful interview with Comrade Colin. I just want to assure you, Nopala, you have the message of Umkhonto Sizwe behind you. From today, you assume these duties of being a Secretary General. People are behind you. People are happy. A young blood, fresh mind. In life, it is a matter of willingness in executing your duties and responsibilities placed upon you. Sometimes you have experience, it's okay. But if you don't have the will to do what the mandate says, your experience doesn't count. So thank you so much, Nopala. In this short time you're in the office, we saw the light. Take a speed, move forward, my brother. I thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you also for the kind words that you ushered to me. I appreciate it. Ndoli from Mandeni, good evening.
My sister, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Fine. Thanks to hold our new Nopala.
Hit it in a minute. If you can do English, it's an English station, this one.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I know, my sister. But Nopala, siyakwemukela bhuti siyabonga uNduli elembeni Mandeni municipality i-challenge esinayo comrade lungiselela amakhadi abantu benu bafuna amakhadi abantu bafuna ukujoyina bathole ikhadi the membership card that's all I want to emphasize that my brother.
Let's allow the SG to answer these questions and then we'll see if there are any other calls before
No, thanks. I think Mathunjwa is talking about the possibility of rigging elections. Remember, we have a court case, and our strong feeling is that there was no fairness in the 2024 government elections. And, some of these votes were stolen on a daylight. We're not being creative and innovative when we say these votes were stolen. It's just that we challenge the election process, being cognizant and having some reservations about how our judicial system has been compromised. But we've got no other option other than going to court to seek relief, even though we have such reservations. But one of our major shortcomings in the previous elections is that we went to elections with volunteers and party agents with no experience because some were new in politics. That is why even our accountability, had some shortfalls. But at this time around, we will try to bridge that gap by ensuring that we put proper systems in place and proper accountability mechanisms so that there will be a trail of things so that we will even keep the relevant documentation that we will keep. We know that the white establishment is panicking because they know that they don't enjoy support on the ground. So they now rely on stealing the votes. But our eyes are going to be wide open. We are not going to sleep until the last hour. We will make sure that we train our party agents, we'll train our volunteers so that it's not going to be easy for these thieves to steal our votes. And then he also talks about the strategy of attracting the youth into our politics. And I think the issue of the youth is part of a bigger problem. Society at large, has distanced itself from politics because of two reasons. Firstly, the first reason is that 1994 depoliticized our society by creating a wrong impression that we have attained total liberation. So people, placed themselves in a comfort zone because they thought we have now achieved everything. There is no need to pursue the struggle. But the second aspect, I'm trying to summarize, the second aspect, because we're pressed for time, the second aspect is that our politics now have been hijacked by criminals whom, when they have arrived into leadership, political responsibilities, try by all means to sideline capable comrades, who just use everything in their power to ensure that those capable comrades don't find expression within the ranks of their political parties, the result of which capacity gets highly compromised, and the youth in particular loses interest because politics have been reduced to an entity of deployment, to an entity of attaining employment and of getting tenders and so on and so forth. So we need to correct politics here and make politics to be everybody's business in South Africa because we'll never change this country while the majority of our people are outside the mainstream of politics. So, and then the other issue, this guy, I think, what's his name? He talks about a cult. He said the MK party is a cult. That is a naked statement. It does not even put substance. I'm not sure if he's sober where he is now, because I'm not sure the way he was speaking, but there is no such a thing. Bring evidence. If you are saying the MK party is a cult, We're members of the MK party. We know it better than him. We know there is no cult. There are systems here. There are structures which are being consulted before decisions are taken.
Before you move, let's see a voice note. People are talking to you. I just want to squeeze a voice note so that you're able to answer when we digest it.
Okay.
Power family, good evening. Nopal, what is the MKP position on foreigners? Normally when we do door-to-door skhuluma nama voters and citizens, SPCC, basibuza ukuthi what is the position of the MKP on foreigners? Kishamain Mo at Richville, and there is MKP in Tshwane.
Let's hear the second one.
Good evening, Colin. MKP is a Zuma party. Once he dies, the MKP is also dead. So that's not a political party. It's just a family business.
Thank you so much. We've heard those voice notes, and I'm going to ask for indulgence from my producer here because we'll not always get the SG back in studio with us. Because the question of continuity, and I'm going to latch on to that as well, and sustainability is very big in the minds of South Africans. You know, we do know that as much as there is an effort, and we can appreciate the effort to make the party into an organizational institution with processes, as you're putting together now, systems and policies that run. Everything is still largely centralized decision making around the president. How do you see that, God forbid, life happens to all of us, whether you are incapacitated by, anything, whether it's death or accident or whatever happens to the president, how will the party take shape in terms of continuity?
Now, remember when we started, Colin, there were no structures in the MK party. So it was inevitable that the president can be the center, of instructions, because where else will you take instructions, from if you don't take them from the president while there are no structures? So what becomes a responsibility is that we must build an organization with a life of its own so that it can be able to rely on its systems for its existence. This party is still growing. The founder of this party is President Zuma. You can't take away, that reality. So I've never seen a party which is built today and its structures are built today, comprehensively. It has never happened. This organization was announced by one man, and don't you expect that one man to provide direction where necessary? That is a reasonable intervention because there are no structures in place. So it is bound to happen in the absence of structures. So that is why we are saying a huge task that we have now is a task of building proper systems so that the organization will be able to exist even beyond the directives of the president, even though the president is a final arbiter. But I'm saying at a grassroots level, the organization must operate. It must be able to take its decisions because it's not going to be practical that every time a branch wants to take a decision, it must go to Nkandla. But in the absence of structures, where else can you take those decisions from? So I'm saying people must be realistic when they make this characterization of the MK party and not talk about as though they are talking about a party which was formed 20 years ago. It's a party which was formed 2 years ago. So all the things that are happening are things which are inevitable. About the foreigners, here is the position. When you say undocumented foreigners, you are talking about people who have broken the law. So how can you protect such people? Those people must be arrested. Even when our comrades were in exile, they were known by the government of those countries that they are within the country, even though they were operating underground. So you can't say undocumented foreigners are correct, it means we are not taking seriously the laws that are in place. The fact that there is a law that says if you are undocumented, you have broken the law.
Yeah.
That means if you are undocumented, you must be arrested. That is the position of the MK party. But if you are documented in South Africa, then there is no need for us to chase you because you are documented to be here in South Africa. You are known by the government. It's the law that allows you to be here. But with regards to job opportunities, the first preference must be given to South Africans because you can't give the first preference to a foreigner while there are prevalent, catastrophic socio-economic conditions which are currently engulfing our people, and you want to prioritize a foreign national. Even if the foreign national is documented, but he must never be given, special recognition when it comes to job opportunities.
Yeah.
It must be given to a South African. So that is a summary of our position. I was going to expand if we had time, but we don't have time.
Yeah, we're trying to push it a little bit. So we're going to give I just have to apologize to our a guest that we're going to take for the last half an hour, because I think there's still one or two things that we need to unpack around MK, and there's a question as well. The advent of small parties, minority parties, we've seen it and the impact thereof in 2024 national elections. And to an extent where we are sitting now with about 500 parties in the IEC database, and I think it could be growing by the day. What is the position of the MK party in consolidating or working together with other parties? Because you talk unity of black parties, but we're not seeing that happening a lot in reality. And I'm going to come to the ATM relationship, maybe just leave it a bit. But I'm talking about all these other regional parties and maybe provincial parties that are all over the place. Is there a concerted effort to bring all those, of course, who might align to the progressive ideologies and political economy and all of that, and bring them together under one roof?
Yeah, there is a concerted effort. I remember, I think it was Advocate Dalimpofu, I can't remember, who was narrating the story of how the MK came about when he was talking. I'm not sure if it was Comrade Mpofu or it was it was another comrade. They were saying President Zuma initiated this thing, and he invited other parties to a meeting. The UDM was part of that meeting. The ATM was part of that meeting. I can't remember other parties which were also part of that meeting. The EFF was part as well. But all the parties which were there were black parties. The reason why President Zuma is making this call, one, white people have successfully managed to fragment the black vote with the aim of protecting their interests, because they know that if we go to a ballot paper being divided, then their interests are going to reign supreme and they will exist unabated. So the only option they have is to divide our votes. I would ask you a question. Why would the Oppenheimers fund the IFP? For what? For whose interest? It's because they are securing their business interest, and it's because they are on a mission of fragmenting the black votes. Now, President Zuma is saying here, in Parliament, for instance, ourselves being the MK party, EFF and the ANC constitute a two-third majority.
Yeah.
But we are not able to come together and use that two-third majority for the benefit of black people. We are not, because of our political egos. I mean, the illiterate SG of the ANC, became very reckless recently. he said the MK party, they can't talk with the MK party because it is not pro-left. What is that?
Yeah.
He doesn't even know our policy position. He knows nothing about the MK party. But even if we were not pro-left, the ANC was able to engage murderers before 1994. People who killed our people. People who called our people, our parents and our grandparents, baboons. But they were able to sit down for the best interest of this country, to sit down with them on one table
and form
the government. Now, why is it so difficult to sit down with the MK party with whom you share the same constituency? Because where I stay, the only parties which are in existence is the ANC and the EFF. We share the same constituencies, which suffer from the same plight, which have the same service delivery problems. So why are you not swallowing your ego for the sake of those constituencies? Because the ideology of the ANC identifies for them who the motive forces are. If he knows the ideology of the ANC, unless he doesn't know it. So you become worried when a person of a national leadership speaks in a manner in which Mbalula decided to speak.
Do you think is it your view that the only hindrance to MK, ANC coming together is President Cyril Ramaphosa? Outside of him, can you unite with the ANC?
No, Cyril is not the only hindrance. The outcomes were predetermined to achieve a particular purpose. I will make a practical example. In KZN, the IFP is funded by the Oppenheimers. That is an open secret. They declare. They are
but those are forces brought in by.
I'm going to a particular point, and then the ANC, Ramaphosa, the president of the ANC, is an ice boy of these guys, the Oppenheimers and others, and the Ruperts, and you've got the DA, which is a pure white establishment organization. So these parties, their terms are dictated to by their funders. Whether we like it or not, I was telling comrades that we will never break the unity of these three parties because it's not them who instructed them to work together. It's not their leadership, respectively. It's their funders who said, and the manner in which the outcomes are, they are favorable to the interest of their funders. The MK party, us combined with the EFF, we don't make 50+1 there in KZN. I think we are 49. And then if we add the NFP, 39, we've got 39 seats. Then if we add the NFP, we're going to have 40. So this thing was done deliberately to enable the possibility of uniting these three organizations for the interest of the white establishment.
I want to go back to my question around the unity of Black Party. You spoke about those that possibly are in parliament now, but there is a whole lot of other parties outside of parliament. Is there an effort from MK Party to talk unity with them and try to consolidate? We've seen other parties. I know you don't take script from what other parties are doing, but there is consolidations here and there happening. What is your plan or efforts in trying to practice or actionalize what you are talking about when you say Black unity, Pan-Africanism, the progressive forces?
No, actually, we are in engagements with even parties which are not in parliament. There is a civil organization, I forget their name. I think its president is Ngubane. We've got some level of understanding with them. They are not in parliament because our obsession here is not with positions in parliament or in government, but the obsession is an obsession of uniting Black people, behind one vision. So we are in engagements with them. And when President Zuma is making this call, he doesn't say, he does not categorize, doesn't say we only want parties which are in parliament. He says black parties must unite. The time for us to unite has come for the best interest of our people.
The question around the ATM, I know that there's an agreement already and a partnership already working together. Are we going to see two parties on the ballot paper, or it's going to be a one party?
No. Well, I don't know. I'm just a new child on the block. So those are discussions which were coordinated at a leadership level. So I don't have the nitty-gritties. But what I know is that the ATM is a good partner to the MK party. Even in parliament, we have a very cordial relationship. We work very well with the ATM. We have never even, insulted each other, even on the podium, even when we are under pressure, So there's never been an instance where we choose to defy each other. We've always been joining our hands behind one vision. So as to then what will happen in moving forward, I think we can leave that to other engagements that we are going to have with the ATM.
Okay. Let's take a call. We've got Teenage from Soshanguve. Good evening.
Good evening, ma'am. How are you?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Fine, ma'am. I think, let me start by asking this. How is the MK going to question the criteria used by the IEC to appoint the government employees like principal and teachers for this part-time job during the voting period? And then, secondly, I'm aware, I've realized when he responded by saying they agreed and disagree with the ANC or with financial solutions there. My question is, are these policies, when these parties are drafting the policies, are these policies not drafted to cater the society at large, I mean the country? But it seems as if they are drafted to satisfy the wants of the parties. And thirdly, lastly, I say, when it comes to foreigners, it's only the diplomats, the parliamentarians that understand that why the legal foreigners and illegal foreigners cannot be dealt by the government of the ANC because of the payback time. I think the host, minister there, can be able to clarify for me, because I've been looking for the answer for the sunset clause, because I think, according to me, everything that is why we are observing the influx of foreigners here is because of the payback time. These people are the people who were taking care of the ANC while they were in exile. So there was no price that will be put down and say, when you get democracy, you are going to pay us this. So these people cannot be chased away. They are here because of that payback time, which was caused by the sunset clause.
Thank you, Teenage from Soshanguve. He is really talking about the stance of, and we've heard the Nigerian ambassador, His Excellency, they're talking about having done so much for the country during apartheid days where we've hosted Mandela and possibly Mbeki, and he's saying that they are using that to kind of like stay in our country illegally, etc. And he wants to know the position. And I think you may have answered this earlier, but if there's anything else you picked up from him that you want to...
No. I'm saying that can never be an excuse for breaking the law, because if you are undocumented, you have broken the law. That is simple. But I just want to talk about what happened in East London. There we saw some members of society protesting, and I was very worried when I saw some political parties condemning that behavior, which was displayed by some members of society there. And my worry came from the fact that the responsibility to marshal society to a particular direction lies with the political parties. And when there's an absence of political leadership, the masses are going to lead themselves. And when they lead themselves, anarchy is inevitable. So we can't blame those people who were there, who were protesting, because they were protesting for a good cause. It means we will wake up here in this country in the morning with the news that there is a new president who has just decided to put himself as the president of the country. If we allow that behavior of that a king there who has been put by foreigners, who is imagining to be a king, and the people, because there is an absence of leadership, decided to lead themselves. So in the first place, we were supposed to be there. We were supposed to have initiated a protest if there was a need of a protest. But we were supposed, as the political parties, to be the first ones to say, this is not right, not in our country and not under our watch.
No, certainly. Even the leadership of the province, they should have done something. But I think what is worrying for myself and even for other listeners, we've been discussing this March and what has happened, and we support their cause of what we understood is their cause. But it's fast turning out as well. It's becoming an ethnic thing again, where we are hearing amashangani esukendleleni, where people are being beaten up because they can't speak proper Zulu, and there's purity tests that are happening, and so it is worrying that and all this. Most of the members that we saw there, they come from different parties, whether it's Action SA or PA. Those are not Shangans, they are not Zulus, they are Tswanas, some of them maybe even colored. Why would we want always to... And it may not be an MK thing. I'm not posing it to you as a question that you must answer if you can. But there is that sense that the Zulu nationalism is rising again. We are the ones leading this, we're the one doing this. And I don't know what is the MK's view on it.
Look, I think that should be condemned with the contempt it deserves. But here is the reality. Every revolutionary cause emanating from a genuine perspective gets to be hijacked by foreign and opportunistic elements. I will make an example with the July unrest, for instance. It was started by people who were genuinely sympathizing with the former president, but it got hijacked by criminal elements, by people who had other interests. Some people were looting, some were, destroying the infrastructure, and so on and so forth. So I'm saying, even with this march, that is possible as well, because these are massive protests, and some people identify opportunities of pursuing other interests, which are outside the core objectives of this march. But this protests in their actual context, they are protests to be embraced and to be supported, because we are currently faced with a situation here in this country of undocumented, foreigners who commit crime.
Indeed.
Because they are not just undocumented, but beyond that, they commit crime. And when they've committed crime, it's not easy to trace them, because they are nowhere in our system.
They can wake up and they're gone. Let's hear the last voice note.
Good evening, good people. Hope you are all well. Comrade Nopal, thank you very much for your appointment. It was much needed. As a comrade, by the way, my name is Lebogang from Ward 45 in Ekurhuleni. it's quite inspirational to have a peer like you. So please keep it up, keep inspiring us. You are off to a great start.
Thank you.
Before we go to the last voice note, what would be what will tell you that I, as the SG Nomvalo was tasked to lead, given this privilege, I have achieved? What will be your measure at the end of your office, whenever that is?
Is the sense of direction and stability, and the outcomes of the elections, the local government elections, because they will be determined by our state of readiness, and our state of readiness will be determined by our sense of stability and direction. So I believe that if we continue with the pace that we've currently adopted, we will rise from one strength to another. So once we win municipalities, I would, walk like a very proud man. But of course, we under a proper understanding that I have not achieved that as an individual, but with my collective, because I don't work alone. I work with a collective, even though I'm an engine of the organization. But we make delegations.
There are many parts that make the engine.
Correctly. Correct. So there are many people who make this engine to run. It doesn't run because of an individual.
Yeah. And the SG's view and program around women leadership within MK.
Yeah, I think that is one area on which we must improve as a party. It's not an overnight thing. It is the same as the aspect of improving the involvement of the youth in our leadership responsibilities. But you can't, achieve it overnight, because even organizations which have been there are struggling, to achieve that, because we still suffer from that stigma of coming from a patriarchal background, of coming from a perception that women are subhuman and women can be treated only as sexual objects and so on and so forth. So we come from those realities. That is why when they characterize our historical background, they say women suffered from triple suppression. They suffered at home for being women. They were abused by their men. They suffered because they are black people, or they were black people, but also they suffered because they were poor. So that is triple suppression. So they come from that background. So it is important to integrate them into positions of leadership as a way of emancipating them. So it's a huge responsibility, which is not easy, to be quite honest, to achieve, because even amongst themselves, women, they don't support each other.
They don't.
So that is another reality that we're faced with.
What is your greatest fear at the moment concerning your position? What gives you that sleepless night or that panic? The only fear that I have is inspired by the desire to see our house in order. That is the only fear. I hear people talking about me being removed. I don't care about that. Even if I'm removed, I can sleep a very peaceful night, because that would not mean I've got nothing to do. My firm is still running, very busy. So I can go back to my firm and, continue with my responsibilities. But I'm a perfectionist. When I'm given a task, I execute it, and I put all the effort to ensure that I can attest to that.
Yes,
I've seen that. You throw everything that you have.
I throw everything.
Last voice note, because they took their time to send it to the SG.
Yeah, sure.
That's Colin. Hope you're having a good nice day. It's a privilege having the SG. I'm in the show today. So I want to understand the SG's views. Mangabezo bantu, maybe it's MK cult, and saying that when Zuma dies, the party also dies. How does that help, or how hard is it for them as a party, for the black people of this country, of which also I believe it is the only party right now that actually is working with the people of this country. Hence the ANC have diverted from that role. So I want to know, how exactly is it hard, or how are they finding it actually pulling people in?
I think we've got the gist. In answering that, SG, I would also like you to then give us your parting shots in terms of why people should consider MK Party in the upcoming local government elections.
Okay. No, look, we're no longer moved by this characterization of people who call us a cult, because it is informed by ignorance. Like I've said, it's people who don't know this party and they've never taken their time to study how our party operates. So we're just focused here. We're focusing on the work at hand. And the work that we have at hand is a work of enhancing our systems, and is the work of preaching the gospel of the MK Party, because we all have a responsibility to save this country. And the only way we can save this country is by voting the MK Party, but not only voting for the MK Party, but by joining it, so that you can influence. And if you believe that it is currently not on the right track, you have a responsibility to join it and influence its direction. Yes, correct. Yeah.
That's the SG of MK Party. Thank you so much. I can't believe we've been with you for 2 hours.
For 2 hours.
It doesn't even feel like 2 hours. And I want to apologize to the guests that were supposed to have joined us tonight. We are going to make time to talk to you on this important topic around autism and inclusivity. But thank you, SG, for joining us. Thank you for taking your time and for really giving us your heart in all of this.
You've been listening to Power 987 Podcast. For more podcasts, visit